So we are talking money, and I'm interested about this because if you remember the very first conversation we had today, it's how your purpose lead or can lead you to profit, how the two of them tie in. So we focused on purpose a lot on the show. How about we just get into the money beat of it? We have Kevin Muriuki in the building. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Mikali.
This show has been power, and I'm happy that we are ending it on this note, because money is important to us. What is it that you do, and what's your relationship with money, Kevin?
I'm a financial and business expert. I advise people on a personal level and also from a business perspective, and also for social impact. I also advise on that. So anything that revolves around money, financial and business, I do advise.
Great.
Yes.
And today you're very specific about what we're talking about. Please tell us more about that.
It's good that you started off and it's a power show, like you said.
Yes.
So it's a personal finance, the numbers that you actually need to know, where you're seated, even when you wake up, that you know these are the numbers that I'm dealing with as at now.
Okay.
So one of the things that is usually important, you have to take stock, like what is your net worth? That is one of the numbers that we shall look into. What are the interest rates that actually are within your circle of what you've put in? It could be it's on the debt side or the savings side.
Okay.
Then the other thing is what's the debt status that you have? And then what is your endowment, emergency fund that you have as well? Are you able to suffer cushion yourself when you have shocks, like now when you have the pandemic? So what I'll do is we start with the most current one that you actually live with. The first thing you do, you take stock. So when you take stock is you need to find out what is your net worth. By finding out your net worth, you're looking at what are your assets that you have. And that includes, I mean, you can pick anything that you have within your house, sometimes even insure it. So what are the assets that you have versus the liabilities that you have? So that after you do that calculation, it's asset minus the liabilities.
Yeah.
Then that will give you a net worth. What are you worth as at current? Sometimes it will go the negatives, sorry to say, for some people, but it's true.
Yes.
You need to come to a realization that this is my net worth. Then what do I do now that my net worth is this much?
Just to clarify that. So for anybody out there who is young, they're just starting out on life, they do not have property and stuff like that. It could be what you're earning. It could be what you're earning minus all the expenses that you have, you incur, probably monthly. So whatever remains is what, if you do not have any other, assets out there.
Yeah, that's a very good question because it has 4 stages.
Okay.
There's a foundation stage, and then there's a startup stage.
Okay.
And then there's a stage where you're now managing your investments. And then there's the empire building stage, like a self-actualization of sorts.
Okay.
So that's kind of a ladder. So when you're a student and it's a foundation stage, most of the times your net worth will be negative because you are living with your parent, you are spending to go to school, and it's critical because before you get there, you must be able to have that knowledge that you're able to amass for you to get to the next level of investment, which is now the startup stage. So when you're a student and you take a net worth look, most likely to be negative, but there is an expenditure bit that you still need to take care of. As much as you do not have an income source, but your asset, also the property, we normally have the quantification right now in the books of accounts that you actually have an intellectual property. That is, your intellect is still a property. I mean, it's in your head.
Yes.
I mean, it's an asset.
Yes.
And you need to also come to stock with that. So that stage is also important, but you need to take care of your expenditure. I have a rule for expenditure, a 50-30-20 rule.
What is that?
Yes.
Please break it down.
50-30-20 rule is you expend 50% of your sources of income, then 30% you make sure you invest, and 20% you make sure you save.
Okay.
So that usually guides you through knowing how much are you overspending, are you living beyond your means. Because sometimes people even overspend, and that's the other question you're coming into. The other number that you should be aware of, the debt issue.
Yes.
I mean, people are taking loans left, right, and center. You're living beyond your means. You cannot afford. when you take that stock, are you taking that debt with a goal in mind? Because some debts are important and very useful, but some are not useful, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Because if I take a debt, for example, to do a gambling, to bet, if
Yeah.
I take a debt to, just to buy something luxurious for my
I
personal
want a
use.
bigger TV.
Yes.
I want couch. I want a waterbed.
I mean, you
So-
can get a small, simple mattress and still live in.
Exactly.
And why should you go
you shouldn't get
extravagant?
into debt
Yeah,
for
something that is not critical or is not a need. So that is very important, that you also check the debts that you have, are they manageable?
Yeah.
And while you introspect on the debt, you must check also the interest rates that actually apply. And most people fail to do that, because you could take a debt here. Yes, it looks more like it's 10 Gs or 10,000, but the interest is about 50%. But for you, you've not really crunched the numbers and checked down there. You are very quick to sign the form, to click that button if it's a tech loan and all that. And that's why you see some numbers for some tech companies. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't want to mention names, but they are quite crazy. It's like 1 billion a day people are taking loans.
Yes.
And if you look at where they're going, in fact, I would want to prompt within the data analytics for the tech loans providers to check where these loans are actually going to, because that could be a very good informant to how people are spending and where people are getting to use their debt. Because at the end of the day, if you are repaying some money that you get now
Yeah.
with a certain interest, it's a debt. Yes.
That is, we need to know. You need to be in the know so that you know where your life is going and all of that. When you talk about, having money that you've put away, maybe there's emergency money, and then there's the money that it's not really emergency because I know insurance is coming up, or I know that I will definitely need to change the tires in my car or something like that. Where do you classify that amount of money that you need to set aside, that eventually I will need to use it, but it's not really an emergency because I'm aware?
Okay, it's a very good question, because there's an emergency fund and then there's saving fund. Those are
Okay.
two different kinds of funds.
Okay.
Yes, it's money you put aside, but they have a very different connotation.
Yes.
So a savings fund, you are saving towards something. Like you're saving towards getting to deposit money for your house, for
Yeah.
example. You're saving money so that you can be able to take your car for like the checkup, you're saving towards a particular end. But then the emergency fund, you put that money aside, not knowing where you're going to spend, but to cushion you from shocks. If you lose your job, it's supposed to help you out. If you suddenly become sick, it's supposed to help you out. If probably you've lost, due to drastic eventualities that happen, which we cannot avoid, we're living in this world. So
That's true.
an emergency fund, it's actually meant just to handle the emergency cases. So within the savings, you can split that to have a certain ratio, which is of course very alive to yourself. It varies from people to people. You could have a job probably that is a bit volatile in terms of maintaining it. Some people could have a very stable, the chances of getting that constant source of income is quite almost assured. So the person who's doing the emergency fund for such these two different kind of jobs, then it's going to be different. So you must also introspect within yourself, what ratio should I put aside for a savings fund versus an emergency fund.
Okay.
Yes.
There's always a question that comes through when we talk in money matters, and someone will be like, I earn such little amount of money that I can barely, make, ends meet. How then do I get to save?
Again, a very brilliant question. But I must mention, there's a very strong correlation to institutional governance or
Yes.
government policies with the livelihoods of people or its citizenry. So if, for example, if the government has not stabilized the transport system and becomes too exorbitant that you have to spend close to 300 or 600 shillings a day,
Yes.
and the minimum wage has been set at 15,000, then how do you expect that person to survive? So some things you may not change; they're without your influence. So what you do, you adjust to the current status. For example, if I'm earning 15,000 and I barely meet my cost, then you need to look at where you're staying, because you must have a roof over your head. What are you eating? Which mode of transport are you using? Because you cannot be using the taxi services, for example, to go to work, and you are barely even affording food. So then you must move probably closer to where your employer is, and then where your place of work is if it's a business. Then you move closer, you save on transport, what you're going to eat, probably have a small garden there. You can plant your own kales and actually just have a few expenditure here and there to meet on food. And then of course you can be able now to save, because at some point you'll have children, you have to buy clothes, you have still to do the basics within your setup. So taking stock is very important, and that's why net worth is also important to know. What is my net worth? What am I getting in from my income sources? Is it from my job? Is it the salary versus my expenditure? And if my expenditure are not tallying with my income sources or my assets, because you have to constantly seek to improve your net worth each and every given day. So that gap has to be widening by the day. If it's not, then you need to re-strategize again. So it's important that you also look at the expenditure side vis-a-vis your income, so that you keep widening that gap. And of course, the interest rates on debt is quite important. Again, when you put savings, there are several avenues where you could get different rates. They are between 10 and 7 or 8% thereabout. So you also have to introspect, like, exactly, this is a savings. If I put in this bank X versus bank Y, here I'll get 5%, here I'll get 2%. Then you also must be knowledgeable enough to be able to know what is there in the market, who is offering what. And if probably it's a current account you have, which is money you can draw every other time, does it have ledger fees, and how much are they? And sometimes you get some banks charge a lot when you're going to withdraw, just even over the counter. So which is the best thing to do? Do you use an ATM, for example? Do you write a check, or do you go to bank? Again, those are finer numbers that you need to crunch, because if you visit, for example, the branch 10 times in a week, that's already 1,000 if it's 100 shillings. So you need to crunch those numbers to be able to elevate, or rather widen, your net worth at each given time.
Okay.
Yes.
Kevin, before we come to the end of this conversation, just one final question for you. Jaime Kali kindly asked, I am not very good with business. How can I make my money to multiply if I'm not in business? Sort of like, what other avenues can they use or invest in without having, I think, the running around every day ya biashara?
It's true, not everyone is actually gifted in business. Everyone should run whatever their race is. And I think also purpose and what I was mentioning about knowledge foundation informs a lot. Like, what do you feel is your drive? What can you be able to do? For such a scenario, you have so many avenues, like there's a stock market, which you can put your money in. There's a fixed deposit account, which also gets interest. Again, you may not necessarily have the skills to go into business, but you could have a friend or a chama, for example, which ladies are very good at, that you can put in your money. You're not doing the runaround. One of your chama person is actually very good with business acumen. Then you actually appoint them, they do the runaround, and then you also benefit from that kind of business. So you have to be smart about it and understand, what are my qualities, what are my traits? Can I be able to run a business? If not, then can I join an investment group where they can actually assist me to actually do the savings, and somebody else there is an expert in business? Can I go the bonds way in the central bank and actually invest there? Nowadays, there are also once in a while corporate bonds, which you can also invest in. And they have good interest between 10 and 20%. So it depends. Now you have to get your financial expert to advise you, or even your, if you are not able to get such kind of services, you can always Google. I mean, Google is your friend.
There's get in touch with you.
So get in touch.
How can people do that?
My Twitter handle is at Muriuki Kevin. Yes, they can find me there. I'll be able to share some of these tips. I'm not sure they can get your number from you.
No, give them your number.
Oh, okay. 0712502990. You can always get in touch with me. I'll advise you from a personal perspective, your business, Like you could have capital and don't have, you don't know where to invest. We can be able to do that. So always get in touch with the experts. If not, find the knowledge and you can be able to advance your net worth and
Absolutely.
finally building your empire.
Thank you so much,
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
Such
Thank you.
amazing wisdom nuggets, financial nuggets. I hope you grasped onto them. Announcing the winners now. For the very first winner, we have Vivian. Thank you so much for writing to us, saying, direct your thought. There's no bad day, just bad moments. Faith and gratitude. Faith is taking a step when you can't see the whole staircase, and gratitude is being thankful for what you have. 3, choose the right association. You'll get access to what you know and what your team members know, or the skills. You win that. And this year was when Chronicles of Village of a Surgeon was released. This year when? Mikali, it's 12th May 2021. That is Abdullah. Your number ends with a 142. And the other one ends with a 352. So congratulations, all of you. Let's do this all over again tomorrow. Have an amazing, amazing day. Adios.